This is going to be a fantastic year for Britain. So proclaimed Boris Johnson's Twitter account 2 days into 2020, accompanied by a picture of the British Prime Minister, thumbs up, suited and booted, conveying an air of workmanlike determination, ready to forge a new buccaneering post-Brexit Britain. 4 months later, thousands of Britons were dead. The nation was in lockdown, the economy in collapse, unprecedented social upheaval beckoned, and Johnson was in intensive care. Amid such trauma, the recent past quickly becomes distant. It might, too, feel trivial, somehow detached from our new age of pandemic. But it should not be forgotten that in the previous half-decade, Britain had suffered its worst political turmoil since the last World War, a period of bitter division and stifled hope. The lessons we learn from this era will not just help determine the future of this profoundly troubled nation, but may have consequences far beyond Britain's borders too. It seems hard to believe now, but when, back in 2019, in what seems another age, the Conservatives crushed Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party in a general election, stability of a sort appeared to beckon, albeit on terms millions resented. But as coronavirus triggered an unparalleled combined public health crisis, economic crisis and social crisis, those 5 years it transpired were just the warm-up act, the hors d'oeuvre of chaos. This is the story about the political consequences of both the 2008 financial crash and the slash-and-burn cuts that followed over the next 10 years and more, inflicted by Conservative governments bent on enacting the endgame of an ideologically driven attack on the state and society that had started some 4 decades earlier with Margaret Thatcher's ascent to power. During this period, Britain's workers suffered the longest squeeze in wages since the Napoleonic War, a slide in living standards surpassed in the industrialised world only by calamity-stricken Greece. Public sector workers, nurses, firefighters, teachers among them, endured real terms pay cuts which shrank their wage packets by up to 14% in just 7 years. Up to £37 billion was cut from the welfare state, hacking away support for low-paid workers and the disabled in particular. While the fortunes of the 1,000 wealthiest families more than doubled during the first half of the 2010s, hundreds of thousands of people were driven to food banks to satisfy one of the most fundamental human needs, to eat. No aspect of public life was immune from the sustained economic assault, which we know by the name of austerity. There were cuts to spending on school pupils and acts of vandalism against their futures and the future of Britain itself, libraries, museums, leisure centres, parks, and arts and culture, to name but a few. What are the political consequences of stripping away both security and optimism from millions of citizens in a prosperous nation? This was the British experiment of the 2010s, a time of riots, protests, strikes, and most divisive and damaging of all, the protracted Brexit saga, whose culture wars would bitterly divide families, communities, and the nation as a whole. In fact, it would drag Britain's political system to the very precipice. At the midpoint of this period of political bedlam, Britain witnessed an audacious political revolution. On the 3rd of June 2015, a scruffy, amiable Labour Party backbencher, whose name, Jeremy Corbyn, was little known outside of left-wing circles, declared his intention to run for the party leadership. His initial odds of winning were rated at 200 to 1, and he seemed unlikely to gather enough nominations from his fellow Labour MPs even to appear on the ballot paper. When he cleared that threshold, his team's ambition was to avoid coming last, to achieve up to 20% of the vote, and to place a brake on the party's rightward drift to embrace pro-austerity, anti-welfare, and anti-immigration positions.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.